Welcome to the Digimasters run-through of the Visual Analytics Project Estimator. In this video, I'll demonstrate how simple it is to get started with our estimator. We'll run through the different features and examples to help you estimate your first visual analytics or data visualization project. For this video, we'll be demonstrating most of the features available on our free tier and also cover off how to access previously saved estimates, which is a feature on our personal and enterprise tier. At the homepage, estimator.digimasters.co.uk, click on Login. I'm assuming you have already registered for an account and verified your email address. If you're already logged in, you'll be taken to your estimates page. But if you have yet to log in, then you'll be prompted to provide your registered email and password. If you have not yet verified your email by clicking the verification link, please don't forget to check your spam or junk mail folder for your email and click the link. There is also a forgotten password link, which will email you a verification code to use to change your password. Once you've successfully logged in, you'll see a list of existing estimates. If you're logged in as a premium member on our personal or enterprise tier, you can now access any in-progress estimates or historical projects, as well as deleting any estimates no longer required. On your estimate screen, you can also permanently delete your account by clicking the Delete Account button at the bottom of the estimate list. By deleting your account, you'll lose all of your previously stored information in your profile, including all historical and in-progress estimates. Let's create a new estimate by selecting the top option. We are now inside the estimator, and the first thing we need to do is give the estimate a name. Without completing the estimate name, the estimator will not allow a user to save their estimate. The first core content scope item that we need to know focuses on how many objects, charts, or KPIs are required. For example, if you have estimated that there will be 6 bar charts covering sales, revenue, churn, margin, customer numbers, and customer satisfaction, then you will next have to decide if the calculations required for these 6 charts are very simple, such as a sum or count function, or require more complex logic. As a guide, anything which will take less than 4 hours for one of your consultants, developers, or self-service users to design, build, and then test their own work or unit test should be marked as simple. The estimator UI shows the suggested unit cost under each text box to help users understand what we mean by simple, medium, or complex. We have also included some examples using familiar terminology for users of Qlik, Tableau, and Microsoft solutions. For this example, we're estimating an executive dashboard with 6 executive KPIs on the first screen, and a more detailed second page with another 4 KPIs. Covering off customer NPS, net reoccurring revenue, customer satisfaction per product, and the customer journey through the sales capture process. We have agreed that out of the 10 objects now in scope, 6 on the first page and 4 on the second, there are 6 simple, 3 medium, and 1 object that isn't a vendor object. That'll be the Sankey. This isn't supported natively by our data viz tool and will be a custom object using an open source chart or a third-party extension such as VizLib for Qlik Sense or an extension from Qlik branch. The second row, called Vendor Transforms, focuses on identifying the effort required in doing any data preparation, transforms, and manipulation within the visual analytics tool. For example, using the visual data preparation tools in Qlik Sense, Tableau, or Power BI, or the scripting options inside Qlik Sense or Qlik View. We've included some examples of the types of lookups or transforms that would typically be done to help a user identify if they are simple, medium, and complex. Support from an SME or subject matter expert will often be needed to help create an accurate count, and most of the time these values are assumptions made if the full scope is not already known. For this example, we're assuming that a couple of data fields in our data will need transposing, and we also want to create a lookup table to transform some reference data such as replacing email addresses in the data with employee ID numbers. We'll add 2 simple transforms and 1 media transform for the lookup mapping table. The third row focuses on designing, building, and unit testing any custom extensions or bespoke visualizations to be either embedded in your visual analytics tool, or if you're developing a mashup embedding the visualization in your web app. A mashup is an app that uses web development to build an application. This utilizes objects or data from a vendor tool inside the web application. It's a hybrid of an open source code and vendor features mashed together to create a very custom and interactive analytics application. We have already added a simple open source object earlier to include the effort of taking a pre-made extension. In this case, a non-native Sankey chart and embedding it into our dashboard. You can see that adding a simple, medium or complex open source object adds considerable effort to your project, as open source visuals require more design and build effort as well as rigorous testing. Our default value for complex D3 object is 2 weeks of effort, and some objects can take even longer to develop and test. Remember, the actual design effort is also included. We've now completed the first section of the estimator. To move on, either click Next or click the App Structure tab at the top of the table. There are just 3 inputs from this section, which includes the number of apps which we're estimating for, the number of drill down hierarchies and filters we require, and the number of tabs, pages or sheets there will be across the app. For this example, we're creating just one app for the KPIs we counted and input numbers for the core content section. For each app, a 20% cost is added to the overall effort to cover the design of the overall app, potentially linking multiple apps together, and designing the end-to-end consistent user experience required to navigate around the applications. I am telling you what the effort is for because if you're just building a very simple dashboard by drag and dropping some charts using the self-service functionality of the visualization tool, then you probably don't need any design effort for the UI or UX. Therefore, you can leave the app box as 0. If you're building multiple apps, for example, there's a summary app and a detailed app for different user groups. Be sensible around just putting 2 in the box. If there'll be little design difference between the apps, then common sense says just to leave the box with a 1 so you don't add too much effort. The hierarchies box is for custom drill downs and filters which are not automatically created by the out-of-the-box features from Qlik, Tableau, etc. In the vendor apps, it's possible to create custom product hierarchies or complex time dimensions, which require extra effort. The estimator in default settings will add a 10% effort cost to the core estimate for each custom hierarchy. And finally is tabs. This is similar to the apps count, but focuses on the effort required to design, build and test each individual page created inside the app. For many apps, this box is left at 0, as all the tabs in the app are identical and don't require any effort or very little effort other than choosing the best position for each object on the page. If you are building an app which has a lot of UI or UX work for each page, then put the number of pages that require work into the tabs estimator. Click Next. We are now on the Project Management tab. For every part of this section, it's a yes or no choice, or think of it as add more effort or don't add effort. First up is Management. By default, the estimator takes the development effort of the project and adds 30% to cover the project management or Scrum Master cover. For small projects not using a dedicated person to do any planning or project management, then leave this as a no. Business Analyst Support. If the project requires effort to cover workshops to gather requirements, feedback or use cases, then the estimator adds effort to cover a business analyst to run the workshop and document the outcome for approval from the project stakeholders. Strategic versus proof of concept or POC. This is a very important choice as it adds considerable additional effort to the estimate if you choose strategic. Strategic projects assume you are building an application or dashboard which will be deployed into a live production environment in a large enterprise company. This means there'll be many quality gates to progress through, which requires documentation, regression, testing of existing applications already live, sign-off from IT, data quality checks, regulatory checks, etc. If you are working in a smaller organisation or company which doesn't have huge amounts of quality controls and sign-off layers, then the POC option may suit your estimate better. POC mode doesn't add any additional effort. However, you can still add formal test phases which you wouldn't usually include in a POC by selecting Yes for System Integration Testing or SIT, User Acceptance Testing or UAT. Finally, we have KX or Knowledge Exchange. This choice is changed to a yes when you want to add effort to document a handover of the app to a support team, as well as create training materials for the end users. We've now completed a quick top-down estimate for our visual analytics application. You can see a summary of the estimate on the right-hand side. We can see our overall total for our estimate in man days, which is the number of days it would take one person to complete all the tasks, and is different to the actual duration of the project. To get a very basic view on the duration, you can select how many people you would put on the team to burn through the man day estimate. For example, if you have 37.5 man days and assume 2 people, or FTEs, which stands for full-time employees, are working on the project, then the estimator divides the 37.5 in 2 and says the work could be completed in just less than 1 month. Scrolling down the summary table shows you the breakdown of the effort per task. We can see at the bottom that 20% contingency has also been added to the estimate. Contingency can be ignored or increased depending on your usual contingency value. Contingency effort is usually determined by how much risk is being taken on by the delivery team. If the requirements are very clear, then a lower contingency may be used. If the delivery team is a third-party company, they may reduce it depending on the commercial agreement they have. For example, if the supplier is on a time and materials contract, the contingency is usually quite low, as the risk is mainly on the organisation employing them. The last task to do is to click Save and Exit. If you're not on the free tier, you can now save this estimate to review later or share with a colleague. Remember, if you can't click Save, you're either not a premium user or you have not given the estimate a name. I hope you have found this run through of our visual analytics project estimator useful. Please share our site across your network and sign up to hear more about new features and updates to our applications at Digimasters.